Before we get into the podcast, make sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at This Strange World Podcast and on Twitter at This Strange Pod.
Welcome back to This Strange World. I'm Gavin.
I'm Leah.
Oh, I hate that. Stop it. Just say your name. Say your name.
And I'm Chris.
Oh, I was going to suggest we transition to ASMR, but after that, Chris,
I don't want to hear.
I'm really done with it. How you guys doing?
We're good, man.
Aside
We're
from Chris's ASMR,
I'm good.
This is why we eat before we record, not during when we record.
I wasn't eating either.
I know. Could never transition to ASMR. I'm not going to waste another moment. We're just starting. But Chris, I know you're incredibly excited to talk about this topic.
I am so excited to talk about this topic.
I'll give a little bit of hints to it.
Okay.
It's building off of a previous episode you did, kinda. It's in a similar vein, and it also uses some suggestions from someone who reached out to us on Instagram. So
That's
if
true.
you are have suggestions, Leah, where can people contact us?
You can contact us on Instagram at This Strange World Podcast or through Twitter at This Strange Pod. And we'd love to hear what you have to say and just give us suggestions, man, honestly.
Yeah, we're always... Chris the other day was like, what happens when we run out of things to talk about? But hopefully if people send us stuff, we won't run out of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. This is a good example of someone sending in something because now we're giving them a shout out halfway through the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do we have their handle?
Do we
What's their
have
handle?
their-
Oh,
Yeah.
I looked it up. Don't worry.
Oh, are you going to shout them out?
I say the first. Yeah. I
Okay.
say the first. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, well then I'm not going to waste any more time of my talking. Chris, I know you're incredibly excited. Let's get right into it. What are we going to be talking about today?
We are going to be talking about the worst, well, not the worst, but pretty bad man-made disasters that I've found that a lot of people have heard about, and some of them are shocking. Like, they're shocking. This list pretty much shows how much humans aren't really meant for the world. It's kind of shocking how much we've done to this planet in the little amount of time here. I say that because so many of the disasters I've found on this list, well, pretty much all of the disasters have to really do with us putting a dinger on the environment. I have a lot of places I get into that they have to do with us putting stuff in the water. They have to do with us stuff blowing stuff up. We're not good people. We're good people, but collectively we're not good people. We're okay.
Yeah, I feel like so this is partly kind of building off of the bizarre natural phenomena episode, which also throughout that whole episode, I only realized it when I was editing it. We were saying phenomenons, but that's not a word. Did you guys know that? Phenomenons is not a word. It's phenomena.
Is this another Mandela effect?
Might be. Check out that episode also. That was a few episodes ago.
Chris was tripped up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with the bizarre natural phenomena is that a lot of those were like kind of man-made. So that's why I'm saying that was partly inspiration. I just want
that's what inspired this one, because I figured there was a lot of stuff I was finding that were man-made things that I'm like, well, why don't we just make our own podcast?
Yeah.
So I'm ready to get into it. So Leah, do you know of any man-made disasters that might be on this list?
Yeah, so I have two at the top of my head. The first one is Chernobyl. The second one is the idiot that decided to do the gender reveal party in LA and cause the wildfire. So
I was gonna add that wildfire one on, but I thought it was too recent, and I wanted to have stuff that was it's like going on currently. Oh, yeah. Funny thing about that. So I live in Boston. I'm not afraid to say that. I live in Boston. What up? And at sunset the last couple weeks, the sky was hazy. And that's because it was the smoke from Oregon coming all the way to Boston. So I could see the smoke from the wildfires from my house.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. I mean, Leah, probably even in the skies by you. Yeah, I've also seen it's been hazy. I think all over like the Northeast. It's been hazy.
Felt like it was really dry outside. And when I opened the weather app on my phone, they had like the little warning of like, that was issued by, I think, like the Massachusetts governor that was like, just so you know, conditions are going to be really dry due to the fires. So I was like, and I felt that too. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
So,
Gavin, do you know of any?
No, I don't know if I can name any. Chernobyl, yeah. I never watched that show. I know it was the TV show or a limited series they made about it. I never watched it. I heard good things. Right. But I don't know. I feel like you're going to start listing them, though, and I'm going to be like, oh, yeah, I know that one.
Yeah.
I assume it's a lot of stuff. Yeah, like fires, not just like the wildfires, but like buildings that were on fire, or like that one blimp that.
Gavin, you're forgetting the biggest one. Gavin, you're forgetting the biggest one. I forgot this too. What happened? What was the huge thing that happened when Obama was president? Do you remember? What did he solve? Dawn is a really big sponsor.
Racism? No. What? Oil spills?
Yeah. The oil spill.
Oh, I thought you were heading towards racism. I was like, that is a man-made disaster.
Obesity. He made everyone eat healthy cookies in middle school.
That was Michelle.
That was his wife.
Oh, that was Michelle.
Yeah. Vegetables in the ads. Oh, yeah. So anyway, I assume, Chris, even just with us having so much to say, I assume that you have so many more since you actually did the research for it. So let's just jump right into it. What do we got?
All right. So to start us off, I'm going to start in my home city of Boston.
Boston.
In 1919, in the city of Boston, there was a disaster so strange that it's actually woven into the folklore of the city 100 years after the fact. I'm talking about the Great Molasses Flood of 1919. Yeah.
I think I've heard about, like, seen this on like you know, on like your Instagram Explore page where it's just like fun facts or like stuff like that. I feel like I saw it like there somewhere.
You might have.
It's just like
pretty big.
Molasses flooding the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
In a short way, yeah.
Flooding the streets very slowly.
Oh, well, no, not really slowly. For anyone unaware, molasses is a very sticky, slow-moving, syrupy substance that they use to make food sweeter. So you can add it to drinks, food. It's like a food sweetener. Make your stuff taste nice. Well, you can also use molasses for alcohol, and that's what Boston was trying to do in 1919. I say it was a slow-moving syrup. We're going to get into sort of kinetic and potential energy, physics people.
Oh, good. Yeah, let's get into some physics.
The kinetic energy made the thing move pretty fast. Because Prohibition was coming up in the time, Boston tried to rush its production of alcohol to get it all out before the ban came. This meant that in the north end of Boston, they had a huge alcohol plant with 22 million gallons in a tank full of molasses. So they would use the molasses to ferment it and make it into rum, whatever alcohol that you can make molasses with. So the tank is about the size of a small building for anyone really caring. And it holds it's full to the brim of molasses. Well, lo and behold, this tank exploded from the stress of all that molasses, and it sent a 25-foot tsunami of molasses traveling at 35 miles an hour through the street of Boston, completely obliterating anything in its path. This flood, adjusting for inflation, caused almost $10 million in damages and costed the lives of 22 people, not including all the animals such as horses and other things that got caught in the way. And I'm not a true Bostonian without including this little folklore of the event. They say that on a hot summer day in the North End, you can still smell the sweet aroma of molasses from the Great Flood 100 years later.
Just so you know, when you mentioned, I was going 35, I was like, the thing that I know.
Did you say how fast is it?
35 miles an hour.
35 miles an hour?
I'm just imagining like a guy or just like a person standing there with like a radar gun being like, okay.
As it's coming towards them?
Yeah.
I have a question. So
okay.
You said the whole thing at the end about like the folklore and like you can still smell the molasses. So is this like a known thing to like Bostonians of the Great Molasses of when was this, did you say?
1919. Yeah, this is a pretty well-known.
You said, yeah.
Yeah, this is a pretty well-known event that happened in Boston. I learned about it in school, and they were like, "You can smell the molasses." And so we're all kids, like walking through the North End, like it's hot. We're like, "Oh, we can smell it. We can smell it." Little known, it's like a restaurant, like making cookies or something. We're like, "We can smell the molasses."
Yeah,
like,
I've smelled it though.
What year were you in school? Like, when did you learn of this?
We were in elementary school.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we were in elementary school.
I was gonna say that sounds like something that would be like perfect for little kids. Of like, wow, look at this. There's molasses and it was going through the streets, and here's physics.
Yeah,
science.
Oh yeah.
How much did you say how much molasses it was? Did they know how much it was? Did you say?
Yeah, 22 million gallons.
I'm not a big envisioner of how much that is in a visual sense, but it sounds like a lot going at a very fast speed.
It sounds like hell to clean up too, because it was like, it was in January, so it was very cold. And so when molasses is cold, it like kind of hardens and it gets really heavy. So like people are trying to like clear stuff out of the way to like save people under the rubble and try to free horse. Like, so Leah, you might not like this, but the horses, like it would kind of act as like, the traps that you'd put down for like spiders and stuff, the glue traps. It kind of acted like that for people because it was sticky molasses. They got they got animals out, they got people out, but some weren't so lucky.
Leah's face just went so like,
yeah.
I can't even describe it.
I'm sorry. That's why I made the list, because it's very sad.
Yes.
Okay. All right. The next event comes from a user submission. So shout out to Julian from Instagram for this idea.
Yes.
I'm going to be talking about the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. Yeah. This one's fun.
I've heard about that. I feel like I've heard about that in like middle school or something, and it was just one of those things that everyone like learns about, and like you spend like a period learning about it in history class, and they're like, this is a big thing. It's the Great Chicago Fire. But like, Chris, tell us what makes it so great.
It's not really great. It's more of a big head slap, like face palm. I can't believe they constructed the city like this to make it literally a giant tinderbox. So it's unknown how this fire started, but some say that it started in a small barn in the city belonging to the O'Leary family. And people think that Mrs. O'Leary, or people gambling in the O'Leary barn, toppled over a lantern, which started a small fire, which turned into a big fire. They think that because the first building consumed in the fire was the house next to it. So they figure like, oh, well, the fire moves next to it. And the fire's extensive damage is due to a sort of perfect storm of events that helped the fire thrive. So the first thing was most of the buildings in Chicago were of a wooden frame in the style called a balloon frame. And these buildings were mostly wooden with a highly flammable tar topping on the roof. So great idea, Chicago, for that amazing design. The second thing was that there was a severe drought in the area, so that any wood was really dry. So literally every building and sidewalk was severely dry from all of this drought.
It's a tinderbox, like you said.
Oh yeah. They were waiting for a fire to happen. And the third thing was there was a very heavy summer wind that was blowing in the area at the time. So the fire was able to spread really rapidly from building to building. So all in all, after records were made, more than 73 miles of roads, 120 miles of sidewalks, 2,000 lampposts, 17,500 buildings were destroyed, and $222 million of property was damaged. Oh, and the fire also costed the lives of around 300 people.
Those are some. I zone out whenever you say numbers, but those are big numbers. That's like a whole, that's like a Marvel movie amount of money.
Oh my God.
They could have made like another Iron Man with that kind of money that it took to rebuild Chicago.
They could have made a Chicago Fire movie out of this money.
Like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Yeah.
So they had really nothing on their side at that point.
I feel like that's the thing. That's the same type of thing with exactly like the fires that you said earlier, of like that you set off one thing and it's kind of like a tinderbox and then it blows out of proportion. I mean, that's fire. Oh, right. Do you have any other fires on your list?
Do I have any other fires on my list? No. That's the only fire that's on my list. There's plenty of other fires.
No, I know. But I'm saying, like, I feel like they're all not necessarily similar. I'm sure people of Chicago were pretty broken up about it.
Yeah.
But they all kind of said something. But yeah, that's crazy. That's a lot. Could you read some of those? Could you read some of those numbers again? Yeah.
Yeah. So the roads were wood. The sidewalks were wood. So that's important to say. 73 miles of roads, 120 miles of sidewalks, 2,000 lampposts. This is the big number. 17,500 buildings were destroyed, and $222 million of property was damaged.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's a
insane.
lot.
The thing that's making me like, of course, Chicago, this would happen, is that they built like 2/3 of the buildings in Chicago were built with wood and a flammable roof. Like, why is that a good idea?
It was probably cheaper. They probably didn't think this would happen. I mean, like, it rains in Chicago, doesn't it? Isn't that the whole thing that they're like, it's probably not going to be dry here?
But
or is that a more recent thing? I don't know.
This was, well, again, the thing is that would kind of be okay now because everything is like light bulbs and everything, except for an electrical fire. But this is back when people had lights that were fires, like little lanterns. So I feel like having a lantern in your house that's literally ready to explode is probably not the best idea.
But also, I mean, they probably haven't had many instances of knowing that would be a bad idea. Like, they didn't have a great Chicago fire to look at and go, oh, this is probably a bad idea. We should probably change this.
I'm sure that was really bad.
I assume you're not going to end one of these and go, pretty good. Pretty good.
Good for them. Good for Chicago.
That's why they're disasters. So anyway, let's move on to the next. You should have done them in order so that it progressively gets more depressing and like worse each one.
Well,
Chris, you said that you had a big whammy at the end, so why don't you save that big whammy?
Is the whammy at the end?
The whammy at the end? All right, I can do the whammy.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's going to be a big one to end on. Stick around to the end for the big whammy. Chris was really hyping one of these up.
This fact makes me shocked every time I read it. Not this coming up, but the one I'm going to have to the end. Okay, so the next one that I'm going to talk about, everyone should either know or have heard of. Leah said it in the beginning of this thing. I'm going to be talking about the Chernobyl nuclear meltdown of 1986. Everyone knows about this one. The main cause of this disaster, Leah's like going at this. The main cause of this disaster was a flawed reactor design and a poorly trained staff operating the machinery. This is going to be a common trend in the next coming of events that I'm going to be talking about.
People who aren't good at their jobs.
People who aren't good at their jobs and flawed designs are really common in a lot of these things.
Leah,
this is just like the big. This is the moment when you do like there's no sound, but like
face palm.
Your face. Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Leah, do you know a lot about Chernobyl? Is that why you're so animated about this one?
Like, kind of. Yeah, I mean, I know overall, but like there are also little details in a way that I know about.
Yeah, none of us are experts. Chris is each time one of us is the most expert in something, but even still, with everything we talk about, none of us are experts.
No.
Let's just say it's the biggest. If you've never heard of it, which it's the biggest bruh moment.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. I end this little snippet with a fact that's going to make your jaws drop about Chernobyl.
Bruh.
Let's go.
Bruh. Okay. So the Chernobyl nuclear facility sits near Kiev, Ukraine, and the events that happened there are very fuzzy, only because Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union at the time, and they tried to kind of keep everything on the down low after this thing happened because they didn't want everyone to be like, wow, the Soviets are dumb. So I would love to get into the design of Chernobyl and what happened and the events that happened. The only issue is that we'd be sitting here forever because there's just so much.
We could do a whole episode just on Chernobyl.
I was going to say that right after this. I was going to say this podcast will take forever, and I don't want to do that to the listeners to have them sit here forever. So maybe we can make a podcast solely on Chernobyl and other huge disasters, because I feel like this disaster, Chernobyl, could easily take up its entire podcast, and we might do that.
I'm sure. If you want to listen to that, let us know. Comment or message us. Yeah, we might even do it anyway, even if no one's interested.
Oh yeah, right. This thing is. Oof. The main issue here was the Reactor 4 crew was running a series of safety tests, which is kind of ironic because it's a safety test. So I don't think they passed the test. For the new voltage regulators. They tried this test earlier that day, so by the time the crew was ready to shut down the reactor, it was already in unstable condition. So when they shut it down, there was a huge power surge that caused the hot fuel rods to combine with the cooling water, like way too fast. And it caused a huge amount of steam to be built up in the reactor chamber. And it produced, effectively causing this gigantic explosion in the reactor that caused a ton of radioactive material to be thrusted into the air. Sorry, I'm doing like hand stuff. To be thrusted into the air, dispersing among the city of Chernobyl. What are you doing, Leah?
Oh my God. Big bruh.
I literally just downloaded this app.
I could barely pay attention to what Chris was saying because I knew Leah was queued up with the bruh. Oh my goodness.
Do you want to go over that again?
No, you don't need to say it twice because I'm sure the listeners were listening. But was it a nuclear explosion or was it just a normal explosion in a nuclear plant or place? Whatever.
Well, it wasn't a nuclear explosion because it's a nuclear explosion is more of like a mushroom cloud and a nuclear bomb. This was more of like an explosion in the reactor that seeped all this junk up into the air and made the entire place highly unstable for humans. There's a thing. I'm going off script here, but there was a thing. Off script. There's what happened was there's this material that's created when there's a nuclear fallout from radioactive stuff in big, what are they called, nuclear reactors, and it created this material that seeped down all the way through the floors and into the basement, and it's called the elephant's foot. And if you stand at the elephant's foot for longer than I don't know the exact number, but it's kind of like 15 minutes or something, or within an hour, you can die just by standing next to this thing for like 15 minutes.
Today? Like if you go
today, if I went today and went in the basement, I would die.
If you were to go to Chernobyl today, Gavin, like it's still not a place you want to go to. Or if you were to go to visit it, you wouldn't want to be there for long because it's still active. Like the radiation is still active. It's obviously not as strong as it was when it first happened.
Yeah, but it's been like 20 quick maths. Oh my goodness, quick maths. It was in 86. So
it was
what
86.
Is that?
It's 2020.
30, 34. No, 34 years has it been?
Maybe.
Is that quick math?
So
can you tell that we're communication students?
Between 30 and 40 years, let's say. Something even though 40 is an overshot, but
the sad thing was, even though only 22 people died in the explosion, thousands upon thousands were affected by the nuclear fallout, much down the road. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about how long it's been since the explosion and how that's been 40 years or 30 to 40 years. Don't worry, because you'll be safe to visit the area. This is my big fact that is like jaw-dropping. Don't worry, the radiation will be safe for humans to visit in the area in about 20,000 years.
Oh, cool. We'll definitely be alive then.
20,000 years you can go back.
We're not going to even make it through the rest of this year.
That's true. 2020 has been hitting us with a wham, man.
Oh, it has. I just looked up, is it safe to go to Chernobyl now? And one thing says that it was deemed safe for tourists to go since 2010. However, tourists have to be screened before they visit and checked for radioactive particles after they visit. And they're told not to touch objects and not to sit down anywhere. So I'm sure they don't get close to it, but
the big epicenter of the explosion is called the epicenter. It's called the nuclear.
The epicenter called the epicenter?
Chernobyl. It's called the Chernobyl exclusion zone, and that place won't be safe for another 20,000 years.
Have they sent robots into it to look at it or something, or have people in suits got into it?
I'm sure
have they been in there?
They built a big cage around it.
Yeah.
The issue is that stuff I was talking about, the elephant's foot, when that's corrosive and it'll keep eating through the floor. And at some point they're worried that might go underground and touch the water supply and then cause all the water to be radioactive. So they're really worried about that. So they built a big cage around it, but that doesn't really stop the thing from going through the floor.
Here's some advice to anyone who lives near Chernobyl. Move.
Get out and go.
Quiet. Leave. Don't be there.
It's actually really sad if you look into the main story of just how sudden it was, sad. How fast people had to get up, leave their stuff, and just go. Animals I think were left there, children. Sometimes you couldn't always get your children. They were left there too, and just the effects of the radiation. If you look at pictures on Google, which if you do, be advised, it's really heartbreaking. It took a really, really bad toll on their body and on their brains. And oh my gosh, it's really heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. Chernobyl, I feel like we could probably move on from Chernobyl because honestly, I think we could do a whole episode about it. So maybe we'll do that. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll do an episode about that. So as much as we'd love to keep talking about it, Chris, what's maybe Leah.
What's the next one?
What's the next one?
You also hinted at this one when you were talking about which ones you think which ones you hear about. So this is called the Deepwater Horizon spill. So you might not know it by its original name, but you'll know it as the BP oil spill that happened in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010. So that huge one that everyone was tracking when we're all little kids.
Yeah. Do you remember when that happened? And then Dawn just comes in, is like, "I am Superman. Let's go."
What?
Did that happen?
Oh yeah, Dawn.
When that happened, Dawn came in. It was
Dawn, the soap company.
Mm-hmm,
the soap.
Oh, you said Dawn, and I was like, Donald. Who are you talking about?
I was like, Donald Trump. What?
Dawn, the people who are like, we test our soap on ducks. They were like, we will save the oil,
and they did. Well, they saved the ducks.
But yeah, go on, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this happened in the Gulf of Mexico in 2010, and it was on the oil drilling rig named Deepwater Horizon, also the name of the movie that goes along with this.
Yeah,
so
I definitely heard of the movie.
Oh, the movie starring Mark Wahlberg? Of course.
Mm.
So this rig exploded and sank into the Gulf of Mexico, resulting in the bleeding of 4 million barrels of oil into the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. This also resulted in the deaths of 11 crew members aboard the rig. So for 87 days straight, oil poured into the waters, contaminating them with a sludgy black toxic oil. And the leak poured out enough oil in the water to fill the state of Oklahoma. So around 68,000 miles of water.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I've never been to Oklahoma, but that sounds like a lot.
But also think about like the marine life and just like the animals and the ecosystem surrounding just like that area. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, even you were just saying the last time about like Chernobyl with the water source. That's like, this is the whole water. Like,
yeah, right. This is 68,000 miles of water. Yeah. And in this, the spill had a huge environmental impact as well, affecting close to 8,332 species of marine life. So not even just like 8,000 sharks, it was like 8,000 species of marine life that this was affecting. And because of the composition of oil and how the chemicals mix and everything, sometimes the oil would create things called dead zones in some areas, effectively getting rid of all of the oxygen and suffocating any marine life that was close by. So,
God.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I'm sorry. It took close to 6 years to clean up most of the oil, and there's still animals that are still affected by this oil spill to this day.
Oh my goodness.
But then Dawn blessed us with that very cute commercial of the duck getting cleaned with the Dawn soap.
Yeah. You love Dawn. Dawn, if you want to sponsor us, Dawn dish soap or whatever, reach out.
We love you.
Love Dawn.
Love Dawn. Love Dawn.
Yeah.
So
wow, that's crazy.
I know, right? That one. Well, that's
they're all
kind of
crazy
similar.
And not good, but
yeah. So the next thing
we're
talking
all
about,
really bad.
It's all bad.
We're terrible species.
This is not a great episode. This is a pretty good episode. I would say so far, mid-episode check-in. I would say we're doing pretty well, but the content, it's pretty dark.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we haven't hit the last one yet.
It's also cool because we were around for some of the stuff that happened.
Yeah.
So like, even though it happened 10 years ago, it's just like still we can kind of recall back.
We have memories of I feel like a lot of the stuff that we talk about is then like so far, like whether it's like a cult from the 90s or something in the 50s or like old stuff that we weren't around for. But yeah, exactly.
We're not primary sources.
Well, it's nice it's not nice the events happened, but it's nice that we get to talk about stuff that happened in our lifetimes that we can actually finally say like, oh, I remember when this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that makes us like a primary source. Like a friend of mine said, like, do you know that throughout the coronavirus now that we're going to be a primary source? Like people can go to us because we've experienced it firsthand.
Yeah. I said that to you.
Well, I didn't want
multiple people.
All right. The next one happened like very recently. So this is also in your lifetime. This is the water crisis that happened in Flint, Michigan. You remember that one? Yeah. 2014.
That was in 2014?
That was in 2014.
I think that was earlier.
That's like still, I wasn't even saying that. I'm like, that's still an issue. I'm not going to spoil it. Get into it.
It is still an issue. Well, I think it's still an issue. I think it's gotten better, but I think it's still an issue. Yeah. So what happened was the city of Flint was going through some financial trouble, and they were getting their water forever from purified water from Detroit. And that was expensive. So to save money, the city budgeters decided to temporarily, and it's 2020, so I think they're still getting it from there, but temporarily get their water from the Flint River, which was not a good idea. The Flint water crisis was a public health crisis that started in 2014 because they decided to get the water from the Flint River. What happened was the water was polluted. They were dumping chemicals into the water. Obviously, that's a very common trend. They were dumping chemicals in the water of the Flint River that was corrosive. And what would happen was they would go through the pipes of the Flint residents, and it would dissolve the lead pipes that the water was going through. So now their water is contaminated with a ton of lead. And the city officials were like, no, it's fine. Everything's fine. Like, look, you can boil the water and you'll be fine. That didn't fix anything. And so people started getting like really mad, and they were protesting everything. And there was some people walking up and down the streets with gallons of the Flint water that they get from their faucet. And it's this, I looked at the pictures, it's this yellowy orange gross water compared to like the Detroit water, which is like this crystal clear water. And it's sad that a lot of people got sick and poisoned by the lead, even though the city people knew that this was a problem, and they tried to cover it up for whatever reason.
I feel like I remember seeing videos of like people running their tap water and it just being like this gross yellow brown water.
It was black.
Oh,
I saw a video where it was black. Like, that's disgusting. Like, that's when you know, like, something's wrong. Even if your water changes color a little bit, like, that's when you know something's wrong. That's when you should, like, stop.
Yeah. So, Chris, I know you said that the cause was, like, the pipes and stuff. But so we're talking about man-made disasters. So what did you say? I'm sorry if you mentioned this, but
what was the man-made?
Yeah, like, why did that happen?
Right. So long before the recent crisis got any headlines, the city of Flint was really familiar with the crappy water that was, right next to them. So for more than a century, the Flint River was an unofficial waste disposal site for treated and untreated refuse from many industries that were along the shores of the river. And so they would just dump. It was from carriage factories, car factories, meat packing plants, lumber, paper mills. We're all dumping all their toxic crap into the river. And they were they were saying the waterway also received raw sewage from the waste treatment plant, agriculture and urban runoffs, toxic from landfills. And they said that the river was rumored to have caught fire a couple of times, which water shouldn't be catching fire. And that's the water that's going into these people's pipes.
This whole time it was?
Well, no, after they tried to save money by redirecting the water from Detroit, from the Flint River. Yeah. So now they're getting their drinking water from Flint, Michigan, or from the Flint River. So they're drinking water that catches fire. Like, that's not okay.
It's flammable liquid, like nail polish remover.
I don't love flammable water. I wouldn't go into like a corner store and be like, let's see, Smart Water, $1.50, Dasani, $1. Oh, flammable water, 50 cents. Heck yeah, let's get that. No, that's preposterous.
Sometimes being cheap is not the best thing when it comes to your health and safety.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
No. That's why.
So the next one is called the Minmata disease. And it's not really a disease per se, but it is kind of a disease. So the Minmata disease, sometimes referred to as the Chiso-Minmata disease, is a neurological syndrome caused by severe mercury poisoning. And some of the symptoms is ataxia, numbness in the hands and feet, general muscle weakness, narrowing of the field of vision, and damaging to hearing and speech. And in some cases, you can go insane, you can get paralysis, and death can sometimes follow from these symptoms. Minmata disease was first discovered in Minmata City I'm going to butcher this, the Kumamoto Prefecture in Japan in 1956. So that was when the disease first originated, and it was caused by the release of methyl mercury in the industrial wastewater. So it was from the Chiso Corporation's chemical factory, which they were dumping stuff into the water from 1932 to 1968. They were dumping all this toxic mercury into the water. And what happened was the people were fishing from this water, and they were getting these highly toxic chemical shellfish and fish from the Minmata Bay and I'm going to butcher this one too, Shiranui Sea. So when people ate the food, it resulted in mercury poisoning. And so cat, dog, pig, human deaths continued for more than 30 years. And the government and the company that were dumping this stuff did little to prevent the pollution. So as of, in my source, it says as of March 2001. So I don't know when this was written, but it says as of March 2001, 2,265 victims have been officially recognized, and 1,700. Yeah, right. So that's people that have been officially recognized, and 1,784 of them have died. So I'm sure that's number's gone up. And 10,000 people have received financial compensation from Chiso.
What did you say this disease was called?
It was called the Minmata disease. It was caused by the mercury poisoning that they were dumping literal toxic crap into the water that people were fishing in.
So I didn't know how bad mercury was until I was like a junior and senior in high school. And we were doing a project, and the project was to kind of design something using programming. And I decided in my design I needed to use like a mercury tilt switch in order to like get the thing going. And I brought it to school and I told my teacher's like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's mercury. He's like, you shouldn't have this in school. Like, you need to get this out and dispose of it properly. I don't know what I did with it. I think I disposed of it properly. But I never knew how bad it was until he gave me this look of like, you are insane.
Horror.
And you are so lucky you didn't get caught with mercury.
Isn't that the kind of thing like you're not supposed to eat a lot of swordfish because there's a lot of mercury in it?
That's iron.
That's iron?
That's iron. Well, you're not supposed to eat a lot of fish in general. Like, you're not supposed to eat a ton of fish because every fish has mercury in it at some levels. The problem with this fish was they were really high levels of mercury because they were swimming in contaminated water, which also comes into play. I can't imagine you buy a fish from a supermarket, right? Or you buy a fish from the fish market.
Hold on. I'm so sorry to cut you off. So the whole reason why all these people were getting sick was because they were eating fish?
Yes.
Because the fish were contaminating the water.
Totally zoned out from that part. I was just guessing with the whole swordfish thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the swordfish. Have you tasted swordfish though? It's like steak kind of. It's so good. Like, you don't want it in a big chunk, but it's so good.
Anyway, sorry. Continue.
But can you imagine bringing, like, you go to the market, buy a fish, bring it home to your family, cook it up, and you're literally feeding them something that might kill them later on? Like that, I can't imagine doing that.
That's insane. And also, if you pay full price for it, it's not even on sale.
But when you think of like also other animals that also have ingested type of food with some type of chemicals in it, you're not eating 100% pesticide free, like poisonous free kind of stuff. You're still ingesting those type of chemicals into your body nonetheless. So obviously they were having it at higher rates or intervals, which is really, really bad. So, but my point is that you may think you're eating something that's 100% clean, but I'm telling you, it's not.
Were there any side effects with all of this mercury, or was it mostly just like death and stuff?
Oh no, I went into it. They have. Let me get back to my source here. It said that symptoms include ataxia, which I don't know what that is, but numbness in the hands and feet, general muscle weakness, narrowing of the field and vision, and damage to hearing and speech. And in some extreme cases, there's paralysis, insanity, coma, and death from the mercury poisoning. And they found this out. Like the big problem was here when a couple families noticed that they would be eating the fish and some would drop on the floor and the cats would eat it. So the cats would eat the fish that fell on the floor and then the cats would die. So they were wondering, why are all my cats dying?
So just so you know, ataxia is a neurological sign consisting of lack of voluntary coordination of muscle movements that can include gait, abnormally speech changes, and abnormalities in eye movements. This was from Wikipedia.
It almost sounds like a stroke. Like
like when you're alive for like a stroke, like you're aware of this.
Yeah.
I just hate people dumping toxic crap into water where people are actually using the stuff. Like if you're not using the water, fine. Like not fine. But if there, granted, there's not a real good way to dispose of toxic stuff, and it's gonna happen. Like toxic stuff is gonna be in the environment. That's just a byproduct of things. But don't dump it in where people are gonna be fishing and living and drinking and just being around.
Like you could go on and on about how people want to do things the cheap way and the effective way because cheap is effective and therefore it's going to affect ecosystems and people. You guys should know me well enough that if we did a whole podcast on this, I would go off on like everything.
Yeah.
So
you're very outspoken about this sort of stuff.
Right. Our future, man.
Yeah. Do you guys see that clock they just put in New York City of like, if we don't do something about climate change, and there's a countdown clock. If we don't do it within the next like 7 years or something, there's going to be irreversible effects. Have you guys seen that?
Oh yeah.
I haven't been in New York City for a while.
Well, no.
When was it
was on the news.
No, it was just installed like a few days ago from when we're recording this. This is going to be released in a few weeks. But
so a couple weeks ago.
It's been like on like Twitter and stuff of like that they're like, because you know how there's the big like debt clock in the city of like counting the debt. It's kind of like that where it's like on the side of a building and it's like a countdown of being like, if we don't do something about climate change before this runs out, then there will be irreversible effects. And I think it's like 7 years.
Yeah.
I love how it's New York City, one of the biggest cities in the world, to just put a big
big hammer down on everyone.
Clock in the center.
I think it's like an
Square,
art.
Is it?
I think it was also like kind of like an art installation or something like that, where it's like it's not like it was like a city or an official thing. What, you think Ithaca it'd be productive?
No, well, I think they should have put it up years ago, though. Like,
they should put it up years ago.
It's going to send a message, but they should have put that thing up a while ago.
If New York City turned off all the lights like they did that one day, like years ago, that would also help. That would also, benefit. But people go to New York City to see the lights and all that. So, anyways, I'm getting off topic. Next.
Environment.
What's next,
anyway.
Chris?
Right. Yeah, let's move on. So, this is the big one that I've been hyping up for a while. This is
the last one?
This is the last one that I have.
Am I gonna need a tissue?
No, it's not bad. It's not bad. I've been hyping it up too much. I had 4 other ones that I didn't get to that we can put in a part 2 if we're gonna make a part 2 of this episode.
Yeah, maybe
this one. Ooh,
right, okay, let's go. Let's go into it.
All right, so this one is the DuPont Teflon water contamination crisis. So this one isn't like a crisis that happened. It's been a stretch since the 40s. This has been a problem since the 40s. So this one actually, I wrote this in my first line. This one actually makes me sick to my stomach because of the corporate greed and the lies done by the company and the effect that this had on the environment.
You're literally summing up 2020 in a nutshell, just so you know.
Well, looks like nothing's changed. Okay. So from the 1940s, 3M, the company 3M, they make like tape.
Like office supplies. Yeah, I was going to say like tape. Yeah.
Right. They created a chemical that they use in their products called C8. And there's a very long name. I'm not going to say it, but C8 is the name of the chemical. And it's man-made, so it was never in the environment before humans. So humans made this in the 1940s. So 1930s, this was never a thing. The company DuPont, which makes a lot of products, like a ton of products DuPont makes, they bought the chemical rights to this and to use it in items such as Teflon in their cookware for like a nonstick innovation. We all know Teflon pans and everything.
Oh. I think you told me about this kind of prior.
I did. I told you about this a couple months ago. This was in a movie that I saw.
Wait, what's the Teflon thing for me or people who don't know what it is? What is
so Teflon is a coating that you put on pans and everything to make it nonstick. They can also put Teflon on seat cushions and anything that they want stain resistant and stuff usually has Teflon in it. It's like a chemical that you put on things and it resists stains and it resists sticking and all that stuff.
So was the chemical that you just said? What happened to wax?
What happened to wax?
Because
wax. If you put wax on like your shoe and like you rub it in and then like heat it up.
You can't cook with wax though.
No, but like
wax will come off.
Put wax in like the cart. You know what? I'm gonna.
But he's saying like the nonstick pan. So did the Teflon? Did that have the chemical in it?
Yeah. So Teflon was made with this chemical. Yeah. So it turned out that this chemical and the chemical byproducts were very toxic to humans.
What? Man-made chemicals that are toxic to humans?
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
What?
Who knew?
I bet you can guess what the side effects are too. So it's not that the Teflon that you would cook with was bad. It wasn't the best, but it's not terrible. Like a lot of that was cooked off when it was made onto the pans and everything. The chemical was still there and it was still getting in your body, but it wasn't nearly as bad as what the company was doing, which is where a lot of this crisis came from. But the byproducts were very toxic to humans, and it would cause things such as birth defects, cancer, blackened teeth, and all sorts of just general grossness. So DuPont built a plant in Fayette, North Carolina, and they would be building these Teflon things and these Teflon pans and everything. And they began dumping their waste in the waters of the rivers and the streams around the area. Yes.
This sounds familiar. Most of the things you mentioned about stuff going into water.
So people noticed that the workers at DuPont and the people that were living in the towns and the animals like the cows, horses, and the people that were drinking it were all suddenly turning sick. What's going on here? And DuPont knew about this, and they knew that the chemical wasn't really good, and they knew, well, it's very cheap, and we're making a ton of money off of this stuff. So we'll just pay everybody off, and, everything's all good. Keep quiet, and if it doesn't get out, it doesn't get out. That was the whole idea.
This is infuriating as all hell. Like, you're going to have to add so many duck bleeps for me, because I'm about to go freaking off at this point, honestly.
Oh, my God.
So what happened was there was this farmer that was living in I think it was in Fayetteville, and he was noticing that his cows were all getting sick and dying, and some of the cows were turning mad and trying to attack him. Like the cows were turning crazy because they were drinking the water from the river. And so there was a very lengthy lawsuit brought on by this lawyer and this farmer. And C8 has since been recently, and I mean like very, very recently banned from production. Like within the last couple of years, it's been banned from production because of so it was banned now just because they wanted to stop the whole environmental stuff. But the widespread corporate cover-up and the widespread use of C8 in products was way too much. And estimates show, and this is the big
statistic.
Fact. This is the big statistic. Estimates show, and this is shocking, and I have to say this again, C8 is a man-made chemical, so it was never before seen on Earth until the 1940s. C8, in some estimates show, at least some traces are in the bloodstream of 99% of all living things on this planet.
So I have C8 in me?
You have C8. Your Oishi has C8. Gavin has C8. The shark that you saw at the beach a couple months ago has C8. The octopuses that are living in the ocean have C8.
Plants? Like, what about like plants?
I think by living animals, I think they mean like living, moving things like that.
Wait, I need Oishi. No, Oishi.
Oishi is Leah's dog, by the way.
Now, the big thing that makes me infuriated by this, and as I said that I got chills, I get chills every time I see that fact.
Crazy.
I say that fact because that's the one that they put in the movies, and that's the one that another source said it, but some sources say 99% of Americans have it, 99% of people have it, and then some say 99% of all living things on the planet have it.
Yeah, point is it's around. It's made its way.
It's around. But the thing to think about, it's not going to kill you because, well, it is if you have enough. But everyone has a tiny, like traces of it in their blood. Because the thing about it is C8 doesn't break down. Yeah. So when you cook with it, you might have it. When you put it in the water, you drink it, you have it. Like you circulate. Everything circulates around. So that's why C8 doesn't really go away, and that's why it's so widespread. But the thing that infuriates me is they were putting this in the water for a long time. Had they not covered it up and been like, oh, crap, this is really bad for people, we'll stop it, it might not be as widespread as it is today. 99% of everything on this planet has it in their bloodstream.
So what's that 1% that doesn't?
That's what I was about to say.
The 1% that doesn't is they 1%? Can't test. Well, the top 1%.
Top 1%.
You can't test every living thing on the planet. So that's the same thing as when they say 99.9% of bacteria is killed by Purell. They don't know that for sure, so they have to put 99.9% to basically say it kills everything, but we can't, like, if it doesn't kill everything, we can't get sued.
Can't. Yeah.
So when you say 99% of something in statistics, that means everything, but we don't know for sure. Like there could be
those remote civilizations that like have not had other human contact for like 100 years. They probably don't have it.
Right.
Or like you were about to say, like some random ocean animal who maybe has
like let's say some random person from Australia that lives in the middle of nowhere. He might not have it just because he hasn't had the chance to get it, but they're basically saying it's everywhere now in everyone's bloodstream.
This is you can decide whether you want this in here. So even if you're in the womb, you have it.
Mm-hmm. Because your mother is giving you her blood and giving you the nutrients from her body. And so what happens is you get the C8 from her, and then you're going to give it to C8 to your kids. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not trying to scare you.
We won't spend too much more time on it. But yeah, that's a crazy statistic. That might be the craziest statistic we have said on the show.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that's I added that at the end because that was kind of the biggest, like, that's a man-made disaster right there. That wasn't in nature. That was man-made.
Yeah.
I'd love to know how much money that farmer got for suing.
The farmer, I don't think got anything because I think he died of C8 poisoning before the lawsuit was finished.
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is like, you fill up a cup of water and you have your cattle go to the river to drink and your horses go to the river to drink and everything. So like there's not much you can do to stop it because they're poisoning the water supply and the water supply you're drinking. So, he has it very much so in his body and everything.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's sad, man. This world is so...
I mean, we're not dying from it yet.
No, we're not going to die from it.
If you take into accountability every single bad thing that has happened throughout the beginning of from the Big Bang to now, we'll come up
die before we cover all of that in a podcast. That's too many things. Wow, that's really
gotta look at the big picture.
Stunning fact to end it on. How many people did you, or you just said 99%? 99.99% of all living things
on the planet have C8 in their bloodstream. Yeah.
Wow. A man-made chemical.
When I heard that fact, I don't know why the first thing I thought of was whales. Oh no, the whales have C8. And then I started thinking this made me really mad. The whales are swimming and they're not even associated with people, and yet we're somehow still poisoning the whales that have nothing to do with C8 and Teflon and anything. Our corporate greed is poisoning everything.
Chris. It's a circle of life. Oh. I was about to sing that.
We don't have copyright.
Exactly.
No, but it is how we're infecting the environment and other species that probably want nothing to do with us. Wow, that's a crazy fact to end on. What I would love to know is, so we've said these are all horrible things, but favorite worst thing.
The best worst thing.
The best worst thing in the nicest way possible. The best worst thing. Anyone want to go first?
Do you two know what I'm going to say?
Probably so.
You can.
What do you think I'm going to say?
If you.
No, just say it. Go for it.
Are you going to say the oil spill? No.
I think she would say Chernobyl.
Chernobyl.
No. I mean, that's cool, but no,
Which one?
Oh, the DuPont thing?
The thing at the end?
Mm-hmm.
The C8?
One, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I was going to say one of my favorite worst things is the molasses one, because I like that, because it's kind of funny. Sure, it did a lot of damage. Other ones like Chernobyl did a lot more damage, but I also like, not necessarily that it was more self-contained, but it's got a story. It's not just another fire or water that has been impacted by waste or oil or something. It's different. It's got some pizzazz to it. Plus also, everyone's running away and they're all like, my God, Habad. Oh no. They're running away talking in Boston accents. That's great. Wow. I would have loved to have been there. Actually, I take that back. I would not have loved to have been there.
But should I do my Boston?
Yeah, Chris.
All right. If I swear, you can't really do a Boston accent without swearing. Just whoever's editing this.
Okay. I can believe it.
So in 1919, there was a big fucking molasses flood going through the streets of Boston. So the crazy thing, hold on, I got to read something with a lot of R's in it. So this is from Flint. However, it's important to note that thousands of Flint residents are still getting the water pipes from the lead pipes. The federal action level for lead is not a health-based number. It's merely just an administrative trigger for remediation by the water utility. The EPA and other health authorities agree that there's no safe level of lead in the water, so the continuing of lead pipes by thousands of Flint residents remains a concern, particularly in the light of their cumulative and lead exposure for many years.
Wow. Claps.
I was put on if that doesn't sound like Boston, I was put on the spot.
If it doesn't sound like Boston, then you need to hear Chris's neighbor, Mr. Blank, because his Boston accent is so strong. When he first spoke to me, I was
I'm sure you've had so many people that you've interacted with that have strong Boston accents, because that's where you're from.
Boston.
All right. Well, Chris, so what was your favorite worst thing, having done all of this research?
Well, I have two.
Best worst
thing. I'm a sucker for weird facts and statistics. I think it's crazy that 99% of all living things in the earth have this chemical in it. So that's a big one. And then it's crazy that Chernobyl isn't going to be entirely safe for another 20,000 years. I think that's crazy. So that's Chernobyl and the DuPont one are the two big ones for me.
Yeah, I mean, they're all crazy. As I kept saying throughout the whole thing, that they're crazy and that bad. Not good. But a good episode. Very interesting. Very fascinating. This is the end now. We're in the end.
It's also really fascinating to see. One last thing is either it was fire or water, because it used the elements. But I mean, this really showed that the elements had an impact. Water.
Yeah.
And I don't really know.
I mean, I'm sure that we could even talk about, like air or earth, the other things we haven't talked about in terms of like tornadoes, hurricanes, or earthquakes. Like I'm sure that we could talk about that, the opposite side of that in terms of the elements. Totally do that. If you're interested in that, let us know. If you want to hear a part 2 to this, Chris was teasing. He's got at least a few others.
I have stuff I was going to research, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
We have to give a very big shout out to
Julian for sending us this topic of the Great Fire of Chicago in 1871. I think I did the research. I should know. 1871.
We're not experts.
So thanks, Julian, for sending that in. That was great.
And if you have a suggestion, send it on over to us. We'd love to hear it. We are always looking for ideas. We love strange and weird things to talk about.
If you liked what you heard today, then don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts because we love your feedback, and those 5 stars are like big 5 thumbs up to us. So
we would love more 5 stars. If you didn't like what we were doing, you don't need to give it bad.
You don't need to put the
But if you like it, please feel free to toss it in there. But anyway, let's wrap it up. This has been This Strange World. I'm Gavin.
I'm Leah.
And I'm Chris. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
If you want more of This Strange World, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at This Strange World Podcast and on Twitter at This Strange Pod. Chris, it's time. It's my favorite time. It's time for the sources. The sources are my favorite time because then I get to get closer to my microphone, and today I've decided to do ASMR. If you go like this to the mic, I will literally punch you through the screen. I know you want. Should I do the sources like this? Really? No, not really quiet. That would be really pretentious and annoying. It'll get old really quick. But Gav just did. I know. I'm sorry. That was on me, guys. I'll punch myself in the face. Chris, where did you get your sources from today? Let's blow right through it.
I got my sources from a variety of things, YouTube, websites. So the first one I got was for the Boston Molasses flood. That was from youtube.com. That was from the Boston Molasses flood video from Atlas Obscura. Great channel. You should check it out. I got a lot of my info from Business Insider. This is Business Insider. 9 man-made disasters that had a big impact on our world. I got the Minamata disease from Sustainability at BU. So bu.edu sustainability, Minamata disease. I got the Flint, Michigan water crisis information from nrdc.org, Flint water crisis, everything you need to know in case you want to know some stuff. Chernobyl I got from worldnuclear.org. Oh boy, okay. So I got my DuPont water crisis one from Wikipedia. This is the actual name of C8. This is PFOA is the name of the acronym for this one. So wikipedia.org, PFOA is the name of the chemical. This is for the Great Chicago Fire. This is wikipedia.com, Great Chicago Fire.
Great. Love that. End of the show. Epilogue. Leah, final thoughts.
On a more serious note, guys, like this is our world, so we really gotta treat it with respect. This is the only world that we have right now, as we know of, or that we know of. So, pick up and, try and do your part into helping out because it's our future and it lies in our hands. Yeah.
We want to last longer than that new timer says.
That's on a lighter note. Yeah.
That's let's end it. Chris, what do we always say?
I was hoping you would do that.
Chris, what do we always say? What do we always say?
All right, ready?
3, 2, 1.
Don't build your houses with flammable roofs.
That's what I was going to say also. and don't litter.
Oh, don't litter.
That's what I said. This has been The Strange World. Bye.
Bye.